Goldoni was the leading 18th century Italian playwright, whose sharply observed comedies exposed the manners and foibles of Venetian society. Satires just as relevant today as they were when they were written 2 centuries ago. It's reckoned he wrote over 130 comedies for the theatres of Venice, as well as some 80 librettos. He then went to Paris and repeated his success there at the courts of Louis XV and Louis XVI. Though after the French Revolution, he died there in poverty in February of 1793. Mirandolina, la locandiera, the landlady or mistress of the inn, dates from 1753 and has become Goldoni's best-known play, seen in translation all over the world. The Czech composer, BOHUSLAV MARTINÜ, had been long fascinated by Goldoni's plays and thought of setting one of them in the 1930s. He'd settled in Paris in 1923 and wrote a number of operas over the next 15 years, culminating in Giulietta, premiered in Prague in 1938. The outbreak of war cut him off from Czechoslovakia, and with his wife he emigrated to the States. They weren't happy there, having a difficult financial time for some years, and intended to return to Prague when the war ended. However, the communist takeover in 1948 changed everything, and they remained in exile, mainly in France, with MARTINÜ dying in a Swiss sanatorium in 1959 at the age of 68. The opportunity to set a Goldoni comedy to music arose when he was awarded a Guggenheim Scholarship in 1953, providing the finance to allow him to write an opera. He'd already thought of Mirandolina a few years earlier as a TV opera for New York, but now he could afford the time to get down to work, and he completed his score in July 1954. The first production had to wait 5 years, taking place in the National Theatre Prague on May 17, 1959, just 3 months before his death. As far as we can find out, it hasn't been staged since then, apart from a radio broadcast from Prague and a TV production by Czech television in 1974. It hasn't been possible to obtain copyright clearances for the use of these productions, apart from some orchestral extracts. So, rather than miss out on the vocal music entirely, we asked Irene Sandford at the Royal Irish Academy of Music to prepare a few short extracts from the score with senior pupils of the opera school, and I hope these will give you a flavour for MARTINÜ's fluent writing. He set his opera in a shortened version of Goldoni's original Italian, and there will be surtitles to help you keep pace with the comic goings-on. The story is set in 18th century Florence. The feisty Mirandolina has inherited the inn from her father, with many bachelors keen to win her hand. However, she's an independent spirit well able to fend them all off, while having a definite interest in her head waiter, Fabrizio. The opera's in 3 acts, set in various locations around the inn. We start out on the terrace, where 2 suitors bump into each other. They are the Marquis of Forlimpopoli, a bass, and the Count of Albafiorata, a tenor. They both admit they've booked in because of their passion for Mirandolina. The Marquis says his title and social eminence will help him succeed, and the Count says he's got the money she needs. The Count notices that she seems to favour Fabrizio, and the Marquis says he can't stand the waiter. Another suitor joins them, the Cavaliere of Riprafrata, a bass, and ticks them off for their squabbling. At least he's above all this, as he has never liked women, finding them insufferable nuisances, couldn't care a fig about them. The other 2 are still arguing with him when Mirandolina appears. The Marquis asks if she'll meet him in his room. Why, she says, my waiter can bring you anything you need. The Count is more subtle. He produces a present for her, orecchini, diamond earrings. The infuriated Marquis demands she should come to his room for a private conversation, but she keeps refusing in a lively ensemble. Then the Cavalier drops a nasty one. He's not happy with his bed linen. Mirandolina's a little cross at this public complaint, but agrees to change it. Fabrizio comes in looking for the Count. There's a jeweller here to see him. He's brought in, and the Count starts examining his wares. At the same time, the Marquis takes up his cause again. He'd never insult women by giving them frequent gifts, though Mirandolina's just amused at his aristocratic stinginess. Left alone, Mirandolina muses on her dotty suitors. Take the miserly Marquis. She wouldn't marry him. I like the roast, but not the smell of cooking, she thinks. Then there's the Cavalier, with his hatred for the ladies. Don't worry, some woman will capture him yet. Fabrizio returns, and she tells him about the Cavalier's problems with his sheets. He reminds her of what her father said to them before he died, that they should marry. Yes, she tells him, but I'm not ready yet. Here are our students in this little love exchange, Sylvia O'Brien and Simon Morgan, with pianist Devala Collins. An intermezzo takes us on to scene 2. This brings us to the Cavalier's room, as Mirandolina timidly enters with the fresh sheets. They're the finest fabric, she assures him. She starts flattering him. She's no interest in the other 2 guests. She's just teasing them. And he's so right to stay single. Women are a terrible curse. This is an unusual lady, he observes aside. What would he like for his lunch? She'll cook him a special ragout. He finally has to admit he likes her quite a lot, and finds he's quite puzzled by his feelings. But he mustn't fall into any female trap, he tells himself, as the act ends. Act 2 returns to the terrace as 2 colourful ladies arrive. They're actresses, in fact, Hortensia and Deianira. But they impress Fabrizio, who thinks they are nobility. He needs their name for the register, and they call themselves the Baroness Hortensia del Poggio and the Countess Deianira del Sole. They have some fun playing their new roles, but Mirandolina overhears them and is amused by them. The Marquis arrives, and Mirandolina introduces her latest noble guests. He starts to chat them up, using his silk pocket handkerchief as a talking point. Deianira greatly admires it, and he promises to try and get her one. They invite him to join them for dinner, to his delight, but his fun is spoilt by the Count's arrival. Mirandolina shows him the Marquis's hanky, but the Count has a diamond this time for Mirandolina, infuriating the Marquis, who now invites the girls to his room for supper and departs in a huff. An orchestral interlude transports us to the Cavalier's room again. Fabrizio and the Cavalier's servant Stefano are setting up lunch, while the Cavalier is reading in the background. He's determined to head for Livorno the next day. They serve him soup, and then a stew, which he has to admit is superb. Then Mirandolina appears with another pot, and insists on serving him herself, and she's brought some fine Frascati wine. This soon makes him tiddly, and he toasts Mirandolina warmly. The Marquis pops his head in and is surprised to see Mirandolina sitting at the Cavalier's table. "Oh, I was feeling a little dizzy and he kindly let me have a drink," she explains. The Cavalier offers him a glass of wine and some of the stew. Then the Marquis says he'd like them to try a Cyprus wine he has, and produces a minute bottle from his pocket. He requests small liqueur glasses and pours them each a thimbleful. Stefano appears with a bottle of Canary wine, compliments of the Count, and the Marquis storms out in anger. But the Cavalier and Mirandolina are getting along famously by now and are full of praise for Bacchus. Our singers here are Sylvia O'Brien and Owen Lynch. Mirandolina leaves him and he starts to come to his senses. The devil is attacking him. He tells his servant to pack immediately for Livorno. She returns with his bill and he's surprised to find the lunch has not been charged for. But that was my gift, she coyly tells him. He overpays her and she promptly faints. Now, totally confused, he gets her a glass of water and, taken in by her act, is busy promising her that he'll never leave her when the Count, Marquis and the two girls appear. They tease the Cavalier, so he's finally succumbed, has he? He loses his temper with them all and the act ends in an uproar. The last act is preceded by an orchestral piece, a saltarello. Act 3 opens in the laundry room. Mirandolina is anxious to get the ironing done. She sends Fabrizio for a hot iron. He's in a bad mood. He works his fingers to the bone, but is getting no reward for his loyalty. All she's interested in is the aristocracy. She tries to cheer him up without much success, and when he's gone, the Cavalier's servant, Stefano, arrives with a bottle of spirits of Melissa for her. She refuses this, and Stefano thinks she's mad turning down such an expensive gift. Fabrizio is back with the iron and tries to find out her feelings, but she sends him packing for another iron. As soon as she starts to work, the Cavalier sneaks back in. She tries to send him away. It was that awful Frascati that made me faint, she claims. He gives her the new bottle again, but is thrown into a laundry basket. Fabrizio returns with a hot iron and she chases him off for another one. The Cavalier attempts to have a conversation, but she just keeps ironing. He's totally changed his view of women by now.
Al cameriere, che cosa vorrebbe dire? Voi mirate reste l'amore d'un re, e di risparmio di re di coppe. Parliamo sul serio e lasciamo gli scherzi. Parli pure che io l'ascolta. Non potreste per un poco lasciare di tirare.
He tries to take her hand, but just gets burnt by the iron. They both storm off, leaving a puzzled Fabrizio with another hot iron to hold. An intermezzo bridges the gap to the last scene, a room with 3 doors, a setting always popular in farce. Mirandolina's rather sorry for the way she's been fooling the Cavalier, and when he knocks at one door, she won't let him in. Fabrizio returns, and they finally start to talk straight. And just as she says, "Yes, I'll marry you," the Cavalier starts knocking again. She flees through another door as Fabrizio lets the others in, and then the Cavalier. The Count accuses him of deception, coming to the inn pretending he hates women and using the ruse to court Mirandolina behind their backs. The Cavalier demands satisfaction and grabs the Marquis's sword, but when he pulls it out, he discovers the miserly nobleman only has the hilt with no blade attached. Mirandolina breaks into this battle scene. What's going on at all? She tells them all they're wasting their time. She's going to marry Fabrizio, and if the others don't like it, they can find another inn. The actresses also arrive to see what the noise is all about, and when they learn the good news, they join in the celebrations, as Mirandolina and Fabrizio finally are united. In that final extract from Mirandolina, we heard Sylvia O'Brien, Anita Wilkinson, Elizabeth Pink, Owen Lynch, Simon Morgan and Stephen Feneley, all students at the Opera School at the Royal Irish Academy of Music, accompanied by Devala Collins. And I must thank them all for helping us out this year.